A lonely girl walks along a snowy path along the forest. She admires the beauty of today's weather. The main character's name is Yoon-ju, but her close friends just call her Jae. She is an ordinary girl who just graduated from college. Suddenly, a squirrel climbs onto her shoulder. She also admires her cuteness and remembers her rabbit that she once had. Jae says her pet had every possible disease, and she didn't know what to do with him at the time. One day, a girl took a rabbit to intensive care, and while she was waiting for the results, she realized that all this time she had only been wearing one shoe. The main character says that his asthma could be cured if he went to such an untouched place as this forest. Jae decides to shake his head from unnecessary thoughts and continue moving on. But suddenly, the researcher's attention is drawn to a large palace that stands in the middle of the forest. She admits that she doesn't know much about local destinations and isn't sure she can get there on time. Meanwhile, in an ancient palace, in a dimly lit office, a certain young man, expensively and beautifully dressed, is sitting at a table. His servant comes up to him and says in a trembling voice that she has brought tea for the master. But at this moment, the cup and tray falls from the servant's hand, which causes her great regret. The girl bashfully apologizes to her master, who has not yet paid any attention to her. The young master is very busy with business at the table, which is why he doesn't seem to hear the offending girl. Suddenly, an elderly bearded man enters the office. He asks His Grace to pay attention to him. The bearded man noticed and looked sideways at the servant that he was crying over a broken cup of tea. Then the man notifies the master that a certain guest from the earth asks to see him. These words make the lord distracted from his affairs. This news, which comes to him not for the first time, angers the man, and he says that he should have hung a few more heads. Grinding his teeth, he makes a promise that if the visitor is another liar, he will immediately cut off his head. At this time, in the courtyard of the master's property, two guards looking at the hanging corpses are surprised at the number of headless guests this year. Suddenly, they notice the main character who came to them, having exhausted all her strength. The guards are frightened by the sudden appearance of a man and try to figure out who came to them. Noticing Yoon-ju's strange clothes, they decide that the girl is not like them and compare her to an alien. Jae, as if nothing had happened, sweetly greets one of the guards while he nervously asks her to introduce himself. The main character notices that there is nothing special about her to introduce herself, and first asks the guard to tell him if this place is the castle of Duke Langel. He says that it is, after which Jae says with relief that she came from Earth in order to meet the Duke in person. Speaking about Ludvig Langel, the guards are surprised that after becoming a duke, he only needed 8 years to become the ruler of the entire North. They heard about the indifference and cruelty of the master. His mere presence nearby is enough to plunge you into horror. The guard assures that the master has demon blood flowing through him, and her partner says that despite all his aloofness, the Duke has strange preferences. As an example, the guy brings up his unpleasant habit of opening the gate to anyone who introduces himself as a guest from the ground. Mentioning certain guests from Earth, the girl says that they always have strange outfits and appearance. Her partner agrees, saying that 500 years have passed since the last time an Earthling was seen in this world, and now it is just a legend. But even knowing that death awaited them in the Duke's castle, guests from the ground did not give up trying to get there. The man says that previously this happened once every 5 years, and almost everyone was hanged. But now, the last guest from Earth came less than a month ago. The girl is surprised by the Duke's cruelty, after which she assumes that the main character who came will also probably face the same fate. Slamming his fist loudly on the table, Duke Ludvig asks the servant to repeat what he said. The bearded man repeats that the guest who came called herself Jae from planet Earth, after which he described her as a young girl of short stature. Suddenly, the Duke, ignoring the servant's words, rushed out of the room, silently begging for the long-awaited meeting to come true. Ludvig ran past all the workers into the corridor, leaving them in slight confusion. Meanwhile, Yoon-ju sits at the luxurious table, waiting. She remembers that she took the Manpanji Bob pillow with her. The girl remembers that Manpanji Bob is a character that her boy adores. His view of this character was always full of admiration. She admits that looking at the boy, she became so obsessed with her dog that she received a slap in the neck from a certain K for selling merch on this character. Looking at the pillow, Jae is touched by his puppy and admits that he wants to see him soon. Suddenly, she notices that in such a strange place where she finds herself, her phone is still working and notifications continue to be sent. Yoon-ju suggests that there is no Wi-Fi or satellites in this world, as if this is not another world, but a museum of European medieval culture. Remembering the head of the department named K, the girl is glad that he kept at least one of his promises, calling him an idiot. After this, Jay turns on the music in his headphones, starting to dance and hum the lyrics of the song. But suddenly the main character stops her fun, arguing that now she will see him after many years, and she needs to be serious. At this time, Duke Langell approaches the entrance to the hall in which his guest is sitting. He is looking forward to the meeting. The man entered the hall, locking eyes with the girl. After a short silence, she clarifies whether the gentleman in front of her is Duke Langell. There is another awkward silence between the couple, after which the man confirms that it is him. Jay smiles sweetly, and then asks the next question. What was Manpanji Bob doing secretly in the store when he was replacing the boss? Ludvig replies that Manpanji Bob ate a sweet burger, while Yoon-ju, noticing his excitement, laughs it off. Then the girl asks the guy one last question. Where did she last buy him ice cream? The Duke replies that it happened in the silver mine market. As soon as her friend answered all the questions correctly, the main character with a wide smile opened her arms for a hug, beckoning her asshole to her. Ludvig happily joins her in the hug, silently glad that Jay didn't leave him. Time travels back in time to a family of 4 driving down the road in heavy snow. But the driver loses control, causing the car to slide off the road and crash. The entire family of the main character died. The girl admits that every day of her life before meeting Ludvig was a nightmare because her entire family died in a car accident. There were no relatives who could take in the orphan child, which is why Jay was left completely alone. Due to a strong feeling of guilt and loss, Yoon-ju did what she shouldn't have. After swallowing pills, she loses consciousness. Sometime later, Jay wakes up in the hospital. She stood up and looked around, while tears welled up in her eyes again. A blonde man approaches the girl, whom she recognizes as her uncle. He admits that he was worried about her and is glad that she woke up. The main character does not hold back her tears and hugs her uncle. He calms her down and invites her to return home. Already at home, Jay watches how her uncle is busy cleaning and advises his niece to rest. Yoon-ju is surprised at how economical her relative has become, remembering his past gangster image. The girl tells her uncle that she has already graduated from college, so she's going to look for a job, which he advises her not to rush into. The man asks if his niece has any vacancy in mind, to which she says no, and she wants to find a job in her specialty. Hearing her wish, the uncle thought a little and pleased the girl that he knew one good company that she might like, to which she responded with interest. On the advice of her uncle, Jay came to the office to get a job, where she was already met by her boss named Kay. The girl smiles at him in greeting and says that she is very glad to meet him. Kay says that they do not have a separate office, but work on a permanent basis, and that her profession is somewhat similar to a foster family. He adds that usually, unmarried and suitably qualified people cannot take on guardianship. When the management decides to complete the work, a notification will be sent to Yoon-ji's phone, after which 3 days will be allocated for goodbye. The man says that the average length of work is 5 years, and this is the same as raising a child. He advises not to treat work as a job responsibilities. The girl didn't seem to be listening to him at all. Her face flushed when she saw that Mr. K was smiling more than he seemed. Approaching the little boy, the boss says that if the main character gives him a lot of love, his wounded soul will get a chance at a second life. He introduces Yoon-ji to a young master named Ludvig Landgill, who came from another world, the Kronos Empire. From this day on, he will be her pupil. The girl is surprised by the boy's beauty and compares him to an angel, while Kay says that the child understands speech but cannot write in their language. The main character sits down in front of the boy, and, although she wanted to first introduce herself with her official name, she decided to call herself simply Jay. Speaking about this memory, she admits that she remembers well how they met. Looking at the child, her soul began to shine, and the bad things disappeared from her memory. Little Ludvig Landgill became her mischievous puppy, who filled her life with meaning. And now, after so many years hugging him, Jay promises that if one day they part, she will find him again and will not let him go. After all, when he became her child, she was healed along with the boy. Walking home with the child, the girl notices Ludvig's clothes and thinks that they look strange and stand out too much. Once at home, Jay decides to try on girls' clothes on the young gentleman. She admires every way he looks in a dress, but the boy doesn't like it and takes off his clothes. At that moment, the girl saw a distinctive gender characteristic, which makes it clear that the child in front of her is not a girl, as she wanted. She says that she can't believe her eyes, because Ludvig looks like a beautiful girl, and assumes that there are no clothes that would suit him. Suddenly, at this moment, the child begins to cough heavily, and the main character rushes to his aid. After touching Ludwig's head, Yoon-ju notices that he has a high fever, and is afraid that it might be a fever. At this moment, an episode with her deceased younger brother, who cried in the same way when he was hungry, pops up in her memory. Then the girl calmed him down and promised to solve the problem, which is what she is doing now with the young master. She can guarantee him complete safety. The young mother put the child to bed, placing a cold, wet towel on his hot forehead. While the baby was sleeping, Jay decided to prepare him something to eat. She wanted to taste the dish, but spat out this disgusting thing. After several attempts, she manages to cook something delicious, after which she asks Ludvig to eat to gain energy. She wanted to feed the boy when she suddenly became nervous when she saw painful swelling on his neck. The girl immediately remembers Kay's words that her task is to help the wounded soul of the boy and heal him, return him safely to his place. Jay asks for forgiveness from the young master, although she herself does not understand where he got such wounds from. Time returns to the past, to Ludvig's memories. In them, a woman with incredible anger on her face strangles him. Unable to bear it any longer, the boy begs his mother to stop, because at this rate she will really strangle him. The woman lets the child go, but gives him a strong slap in the face and says that he does not dare call her Mom. The following words make the boy even more sad. His mother calls him the devil's spawn and says that she does not understand how she could give birth to something so disgusting. After this, the mother listens to the man say that her son is weak, but has good mental abilities. He learns much faster than his peers. However, the mother, with amazing equanimity on her face, says that this does not matter to her, and then leaves the interlocutor. But the man continues to say that it would be a loss not to give her child the opportunity to study in the outside world. But the woman ignores his words and leaves the room without saying a word. Ludvig's next memory is that he ate scraps that were thrown into his room. He cried a lot because he did not receive enough love and that he had to eat like an animal. Suddenly, the boy wakes up. The bandage on his forehead falls off and he seems to be feeling better. He notices his new mother, who has fallen asleep next to him, holding his hand. Her warmth and care surprise and touch Ludvig, whom so few people had previously treated. After a short time, Jay wakes up, but her baby is still sleeping. She is touched by the beauty of the sleeping young master, after which she quietly gets out of bed without waking the baby. Having started to wash the floors, the girl remembers yesterday, in which she was greatly frightened by the boy's fever. She also recalls that upon arriving home, Ludvig vomited violently. She concludes that he has a weak body. At the same time, she notices that this is the first time she cleans so diligently. She is proud of herself that the apartment sparkles after cleaning it. She then makes the boy breakfast, but notices that he is still sleeping. She decides to get closer to him and make sure he hasn't woken up yet. But at this moment, Ludvig suddenly opens his eyes, and Jay, thinking that she accidentally woke him up, apologizes. Then she invites the boy to have breakfast since he is already awake, to which he shakes his head negatively. Suddenly, the boy tries to pronounce the name of his new guardian. Yoon-ju is happy about this and helps him pronounce the word Jay. She says the boy can call her anytime. Jay squeals again at Ludwig's cuteness, then suddenly realizes that she said it out loud. The girl and boy exchanged affection a little more, where they took turns calling each other by name. After this, the main character asked the child to wait a little while she served him the dish. But she saw how Ludvig became interested in apples, from which he had an idea, which she immediately embodied. Throwing a sheet over herself, she begins to play a scary evil witch, who ominously offers the prince to eat an apple. But her idea gets out of control when the boy's brain, instead of a simple game, sees his mother in front of him, who wishes him a quick death. Ludvig is frightened by this vision. He screams loudly and covers his face with his hands. Not expecting such a reaction, Jay tries to calm the child, but all her attempts are futile. She admits that the witch came out too scary and apologizes. This doesn't help, so she comes up with another plan. She goes out to get the necessary things. A few seconds later, Ludvig watches a different performance. Jay is playing a game where the toy man Poji and the owner of the dog treat store get to know each other. This helps normalize the boy's condition. The two toys say they have come to make friends with the prince, but begin to argue about who will do it first. In a heated argument, Manpanji proves that he is the boss of the two because he is a cute dog and he is just a piece of sponge. The dog toy wins, after which Jay says that he deserves a hug, which Ludvig gives to Manpanji. Having finished the performance, the girl once again asks for forgiveness from the child and says that from now on, she and the dog will protect him from any troubles. Several weeks pass. Yoon-ju plays a game with the child in which he needs to name the objects that are drawn on the cards. Ludvig successfully completes the task, which causes a wave of enthusiastic emotions in the girl. Then she asks the boy to name the objects on the cards himself, which the boy also does well. Jay is proud of his child, that he is not only beautiful, but also smart. She thinks he might get into an organization for people with high intelligence. But noticing Ludvig's stiffness, the girl realizes that they have been together for several weeks, but he is still unable to open up to her. At this moment, she has a good idea and tells the boy that now they can take a break from studying together. She happily presents the child with a cutlet in the shape of a puppy and invites them to cook them now. Ludvig shows his pupil a dog on a stick that he made himself. Jay praises him and offers to fry the treat. Having prepared a cutlet that her child made, the main character was delighted with its wonderful taste. She invites Ludvig to try it too. He takes a bite and is also fascinated by the taste of the dish. The girl praises him again and then kisses him on the cheek. She says that, in addition to success in his studies, he also needs to succeed in his love for his loved ones. The boy fell into a small state of wonder when he felt a peck on his cheek. Yoon-ju says that now it's his turn to kiss her. Ludvig was embarrassed to do this, so Jay kissed him again so that he would not tense up. And yet, overcoming his indecision, the young master kisses his guardian, which causes the girl a great feeling of pride. Several months flew by quickly. The couple cooked a lot together, went shopping, and went on business. Yoon-ju steps on a small piece of the construction set with her foot, which causes her unpleasant pain. She complains that she asked Ludvig many times to put away the toys, but he does whatever he wants, just like at home. But the girl tempers her anger when she notices her sleeping child. She understands that children are who they should be. Meanwhile, there is a car parked on the street near the house. The uncle of the main character sits in it, waiting for his niece, but she doesn't appear for a long time, which is why he asks a boy named Jin, who is sitting in the back seat, to wait a little. After some time, Jay finds himself in the car with his uncle. She listens to the cries of Jin, who is not happy that she kept him waiting because of some child. The main character cannot stand such bad manners and contorts the boy's face with her hands. She thinks it would be a good idea to clean out his dirty mouth. But they have to stop pampering when the man asks them to stop, because doing it in a moving car is dangerous. Turning to his uncle, Yoon-ju is surprised that even after a year, Jin continues to behave so brazenly. The girl says that he completely spoiled the child, to which he just laughs. Jin is the prince of the Khan continent. He is from another dimension and is taken care of by the main character's uncle. This child was rude and ill-adjusted from the very beginning, which is why even his uncle, who already had experience in raising children, had a hard time with him. Because of his uncontrollable behavior, Jay even compares raising Jin to training a wild animal. She glances at Ludvig, who is sitting in the back seat. The girl considers him and Jin to be complete opposites, which makes her proud of him. After the car arrived at its destination, all passengers went outside. The main character admires the beautiful color of the sky. At the same moment, she remembers that on sunny days, ultraviolet rays intensify, which is why she asks Ludvig to put on a hat. Chief K approaches the visitors, and without any unnecessary greetings, says that the reason he gathered them here is to teach children farming and getting to know nature. Jay tells his boy that now they will be very interesting and have fun, which also makes Ludvig happy. Jin, observing such a warm relationship between a girl and a child, grimaced his face disgustingly and called farming a boring activity. Having started work, the young prince finds a tomato, which he decides to surprise his pupil with. She admires and praises him, but Jin is not pleased to hear this, and he says that fussing with only one tomato for such a long time is just a laugh. Jay is not happy with Jin's dissatisfaction, and she advises him not to snitch, because he hasn't collected anything yet. But Kay intervenes in their quarrel. He asks them to stop and no longer shirk work. The two are forced to agree with him. At this moment, the guys are called over by Uncle Yoon-ju, who has already prepared food. He asks everyone to wash their hands first. The girl and Ludvig came to the tap to clean their hands. But Jin, who happened to be next to them, again didn't like something. He splashed water on the boy and the girl, but the one who suffered the most from his trick was Jay, whose t-shirt was soaked through. The main character and Jin begin to quarrel again. Yoon-ju complains that now Ludvig might catch a cold because of him. Kay, who was also washing his hands, noticed another coupling between a girl and a child, which again needed to be stopped. But his face turned red when he saw something catchy about Yoon-ju, who was soaked to the last thread. He turned away and only quietly said that the main character herself could do with being a little more careful. Already at the dinner table, the girl thanks her uncle for the delicious food. She then asks Ludvig to be careful and let her know if he gets cold, as she is worried about what happened earlier. Jin is once again annoyed by this, and he assures that no water got on the young master at all and that he will not suffer from it. The girl again grabs the bully by the cheeks and begins to contort his face, warning that if he gets into trouble, she will punish him right now. Jean says that she will not dare repeat the threats, looking into his eyes, to which she says that she will do it with pleasure because she considers the color of his eyes beautiful. Not expecting a compliment addressed to him, the little pest was surprised, after which he left the girl, calling her shameless. As night fell, Ludvig was asleep on Jay's lap, while she and Jin continued to argue about various things. But this did not stop them from creating a warm family atmosphere with which they ended their day. An indefinite amount of time passes. Jay and Chief K are having a conversation while in the tense atmosphere of an interrogation. The boss covers his face with his hands and expresses the opinion that her words are crazy, although he cannot interfere in her affairs. The girl, with particular seriousness on her face, repeats that this matter concerns only her and Ludvig, and the boss has nothing to worry about. But Kay stands by his opinion. He says she shouldn't ignore his words. Ludvig, who was waiting for his pupil in the hospital corridor, began to worry that she was delayed. Jay tells the boss that she cannot back down and wants her child to take growth pills from the Ginkgo Oriental Clinic. Kay says it's crazy to spend more than $1,000,000 on such a useless thing. The girl believes that this is not a useless thing at all, and her interlocutor simply underestimates the problem. She explains that in 3 years, Ludvig has grown only 5 centimeters, and he is already much shorter than his girls the same age. This could be a problem when he gets teased at school for being short. Kay is tired of hearing Yoonju worry that he might have a complex. She also says that $1,000,001 for pills is nothing to her. Touching on the topic of finances, Kay decides to say something that will console the main character. Apart from unnecessary expenses, her business is going well. After talking with Kay, Jay went out to her child. She is very glad that he is healthy, but the boy, who does not know anything yet, wonders if everything is okay. She hugs the child and tells him he's fine and she's proud of him, then suggests they go shopping for food for the party. At the store, they are greeted by the saleswoman, who is delighted with the boy's beauty. Afterwards, she invites the young master to take from her a bun that she herself prepared. Ludvig gladly accepts the gift from her. The prince, with a sweet smile, thanks the saleswoman for the delicacy, which makes the aunt very happy, after which the girl and the child leave the store. While eating buns on the street, Jay noticed that it was snowing and invited the child to play in the snow, but he was not happy about such an idea. The boy didn't even say a single word. But Yoonju does not give up, and, warmly taking Ludvig by the hand, she invited him to make a friend out of a snowman. This idea interested the prince more. The couple put a lot of effort into making a snowman in the shape of Manpanji. After this, Jay asks the boy if he is now experiencing a feeling of fear, to which he says that everything is fine with him now. After a while, the girl and the child found themselves at home. They celebrated Christmas in the company of their uncle and Jean. The family was having fun giving each other Christmas gifts. Watching her sleeping baby, Yoonju realizes that 3 years have passed since Ludvig appeared in her life and cleansed the darkness of her soul with his light. But at that moment, a message comes to the main character's phone saying that there are 72 hours left before the end of the term. The measurement control assistant asks the girl to report to the head of the department by the end of the day. Sadly looking at the scenery outside the bus window, the girl realizes that sooner or later this moment was bound to scare her, but she hesitates, wondering whether she can let go of the child whom she has grown to love deeply in 3 years. Jay does not want her baby to return to the family where his fragile soul was tormented. She is sure that even if she is fired from her position, she will not be able to leave Ludvig alone. The main character again finds herself at the same table with Boss K. She firmly expresses her reluctance to let the boy go. In response, Kay asks to remember the words he said at their first meeting. The average work time is 3. 5 years, the longest period is 20, and the shortest is 1 year. Then the boss asks if the girl remembers his words, that Ludvig has a wounded soul. Jay answers positively. After this, the man says that this child is the soul, and that this is not just some kind of expression. We are talking about a real soul. Yoonju says that she doesn't believe his words, and gives evidence that he is not a ghost. She can touch him, talk to him. But Kay begins to talk about how the company they belong to is an interdimensional organization, and its work is highly secretive. Only heads of state know about this company. And this secrecy is due to the fact that they are doing work on the orders of God. His words seem fantastic to the girl. She asks him again whether he means a real God, or is it just a metaphor. But the boss says that all changes are interconnected, and each is in balance under the supervision of God. However, with countless lives coming and going, Cracks appear in the dimensional balance from time to time. Kay argues that all dimensions are closely intertwined, and if one of them is damaged, then the balance is disrupted everywhere. But God figured out how to solve the problem. In the dimension where there was the greatest diversity, they created an interdimensional agency coordinated with the government. In conclusion, the boss says that this is how the institution to which they belong was created. Based on the man's words, Jay concludes that Ludvig is a crack in the dimension, and God sent him to Earth to restore balance. Kay claims that the boy is not a crack, but if he disappears from his native dimension, this will lead to a rift in their dimension. He repeats once again that he is talking about Ludvig as a soul, because his real body remained in the Kronos Empire all this time. The boy's family passes on divine power for generations, which is not stable until adulthood, but they can live without a soul for years with only a part of it. But when the limit comes, the soul must return to the original body. Otherwise, there is a danger of destruction of both body and soul. Hearing these words, Jay fell into confusion. Realizing that time is running out and his soul may not return to his body, she decides to act. She does not give up hope of asking her boss if there is a way to solve this problem without sending Ludvig there, to which he remains silent. The girl then insistently says that she does not want to condemn Ludvig to suffering and asks Kay to allow her to meet with God to talk with him. The man first assured that this was impossible, but then said that he had one way. But the main character no longer heard his words. She cries because she doesn't want to send her child to a place where he will feel bad. She desperately asks Kay if he one day meets the god of dimensions to learn from him at least something to solve her problem. Then the girl realizes that she has been lathering by mistake all this time. It is not Ludvig who cannot live without her, but she without him. Time passes. Jay, being at home, eats food, despite the fact that her thoughts are in the middle of nowhere. Ludvig notices her sadness and asks if she is okay and if she likes the food. The girl immediately pretends to be cheerful and says that everything is fine with her and she really likes the dish. Yoonju then began to wash the dishes, but a boy came to help her. She decided that he could cope well without her, so she went to prepare the bathroom. But moving away from Ludvig and looking at him from the side, Jay was upset, not seeing signs of a happy child in him. After a while, the couple was having fun in the bathroom. The boy splashed the main character and invited her to swim too, to which she, laughing, refused. Unexpectedly, Jay decides to remind the young master that she has repeatedly said that she loves him more than anyone in the world. The boy rejoices at her words and also says that he loves her more than anyone in the world. The girl hugs Ludvig and asks him to remember that she will always love him. The young prince also says that he loves his pupil and will always be by her side. She is very happy with his words. But suddenly, their fun is interrupted by a call received on the main character's phone. The person on the other side of the phone reminds her of her imminent separation from her child. All the time, the girl was being watched by a boy who was eager to find out what she was told on the phone. After hanging up, Jay decides to tell Ludvig that they will soon have to part. This news caused a wave of negative emotions in the baby. He tearfully clung to his guardian, begging him not to leave him. He thinks she's leaving him because he doesn't like eating carrots, so he desperately promises Jay to eat only healthy foods. He quickly brought carrots from the kitchen and showed the girl how well he ate them. The boy again asks him not to leave, but Yoonju stops him with a hug and says that's not the case and he didn't do anything wrong. She explains that if Ludvig doesn't return, his body will be in great pain, so she will go with him. The young prince does not believe her words, to which Jay promises that he will definitely go with him. They know that Jay will always love Ludvig and Ludvig will always love Jay. In a warm atmosphere, the main character and her uncle, without anyone else, talk at the table. The man expresses the opinion that the time has not yet come for such an event, and he regrets that this happened. The girl agrees with him, but says that she and the boy promised to meet each other one day. He does not understand her words, after which Jay explains that this is all so that they can see each other again, and reminds his uncle of his promise to send her to that world. The man agrees with her. At this time, Ludvig decides to talk to his friend Jean before leaving. Jin, without expressing an ounce of sadness on his face, says that he is glad that he is leaving. Unlike his friend, Ludvig does not respond with rudeness, but smiles and agrees. Jean continues his opera that he is glad to say goodbye to Ludvig because he will no longer have to see his disgusting face. But the young prince, still smiling, pats his friend on the head with his palm and tells him to obey and behave well. Jin also didn't like this move, allegedly because he didn't wash his dirty hands. However, looking at the sad expression on Ludwig's face, Jin hurried to leave him, anticipating a sad moment that he would not like. After that, Jay and the young master looked into the store of a familiar saleswoman. But the girl noticed that Ludvig, having greeted the woman, again became a prisoner of his depressive thoughts. She decides to cheer him up with a pork bar, which the boy likes. After which she kisses the baby on the forehead and says that she loves him very much and promises that they will meet soon and everything will be fine. Ludvig did not smile at her words, but also said that he loved his pupil very much. Expecting the transition from one world to another any minute, Chief K asks the young master to sit and wait. Jay tries to calm the boy down, promising to come to him in another world, but Ludvig still bursts into tears. The kid does not give up hope of asking the girl not to leave him, to which she says that soon she will be next to him. For Kay, the time for their goodbyes is over, so he takes the girl away from the child. She asks not to do this, because they haven't finished yet. Ludvig watched as his pupil left the room, got scared and called Jay back. He wanted to run after the main character, but he accidentally tripped and fell painfully to the floor. Seeing this, Jay asked to let her go back to the child, because he was in pain and needed her help. But the door to the room had already closed. Ludvig, shedding tears, watched and looked at the closed door, behind which a person close to him remained. Time passes. The main character, during a conversation with Boss K, asks him to help her get to another world as he promised. But K, who is already tired of the girl's demands, sighs heavily. Jay, who thought that he was smirking at her, flares up with anger and shouts at him that her situation is not funny at all and calls the man a liar. The girl once again orders to take her to God, threatening that she will continue to scream. This is already starting to get on the boss's nerves. As soon as Yoonju fell silent, the man voiced a sensational surprise. He is the god she needs so much. An awkward silence arose between them, in which Jay asked the man about his words, to which he once again confirmed everything. Suddenly the girl grabs the man by the collar and yells at him again for hiding the truth all this time. She again orders Kay to help her go to another world, and since he is a god, she asks him to do it right now. The boss asks the girl to calm down and listen. Adjusting his collar, he says there's a reason he can't send her right now. Jay calmed down a little, but still, frowning, she wondered what the reason was. The man sighs again. Kay explains that this is impossible to do now. Although her soul is pulled by Ludwig's soul, there are other souls who do not want to let Jay go. Hearing about the souls who do not want to let her go from this world, the girl's eyes shone with a pleasant sparkle. The boss says that it is for this reason that it will not be possible to move between dimensions. And he also adds that those who are most strongly drawn to the soul of the main character must either be forced to let go or break all ties with them so that they forget about her. Jay thought about the souls that were strongly drawn to her and realized that she knew only one of them. Uncle Yoonji happily greets his niece who came to visit him. But in response, the girl only smiled modestly and immediately admitted that she had a conversation with him. After discussing everything over a cup of tea, the uncle realized that his niece could not go to another dimension because of him. But Jay happily assures that everything is not so bad and asks the man not to make such a sad face. But the very next moment, there is no trace of her smile, and she asks her uncle to forgive her. Suddenly, the girl hears words that warm her heart. Her uncle says that she is his favorite niece, and he is proud of her. He admits that from the very birth of his carefree and smart niece, he looked at her and remembered her mother. The uncle says that when the main character's mother and she are sad, they make the same decisions, which really touches him. Based on what has been said, he concludes that even if Jay goes to another world, she will still remain his precious niece. Yoonju, who has tears in her eyes, thanks her uncle for such precious support. While the man asked his niece not to start crying, Jay thought about how much he cared about her and how no one needed her all this time. At this moment, Jin puts in his 2 cents, who doesn't understand how anyone can cry about something like this, and asks the girl to stop. But Jay immediately threatened him with her fist, causing him to run out the door. The uncle assumes that this child, although he is rude, is also sad. Jin reflects that when Ludvig returns home and his strength becomes stronger, then Jay will become just fun for him, which will quickly get boring. Realizing this, he becomes incomprehensible to the joy of the main character, who herself does not suspect anything. Looking at the mountain of boxes of stuff, Jay tells Kay that there were fewer boxes for the trip than she expected. She consults with the man about whether she should take more boxes, to which he says that this is impossible because she won't steal it all. But Jay began to complain that it was not enough for her, while the boss began to argue with her about the need for the toys that she takes with her. Kay went through the main character's boxes and threw out what he thought was unnecessary, toys from Manpanji. Having sifted out all the unnecessary trash, the boss came up with a small bag, which he considers the most compact for the trip. However, the girl, seeing a compass, dry shampoo, and a toothbrush in the bag, complained that she could not live with such a set of things. The main character started screaming again because she was going to a terrible place, and her boss wouldn't even allow her to take a pillow. She has not forgotten about Kay's deception, so she orders him to help her. The man, who realized that at this rate Jay would lead him to the grave, came up with the perfect way out of the situation for her. He lends her a certain bag. Although it looks no different from other bags, it is endowed with the strength that allows it to fit anything. The boss allowed Yoonju to experiment with her. The girl was delighted when she took out a whole bunch of balloons from this bag. Jay thanks Boss K for such a thing. She is glad that now she will be able to take all the necessary things with her. But he suddenly changed the topic. He warns that Ludvig Langell is a very strong boy and believes that there is no need to worry about him. There is an explanation for his words. While Ludvig's soul was healed in this world, in another, his body changed to a mature state. And he, realizing that after healing, he would have to leave this world, maintained the appearance of his soul the same as it was at their very first meeting. At that moment, the main character understood why her child remained so small. She didn't even suspect it and worried in vain. The girl is glad that her experiences turned out to be false, and that Ludvig is completely healthy. Chief K repeats that the young master there has already reached puberty, and says that it was only thanks to Jay that he was able to become so strong and healthy. The man also admits that he is such a young and capable worker, and expresses the hope of meeting Yoonju with an even healthier body and soul. She smiled at the man in response, and said that he had no need to worry about her. After that, Chief K continued to help the girl put things into her bag, while she asked to do it more carefully. After a while, the main character came to her uncle to talk before leaving. He asks if he can get through to his niece. Jay says that of course he can do it, because she also wants to stay in touch with him. Remembering the rules about holding souls, the uncle is surprised at the girl's words, and wonders how she managed to do it. Jay immediately says the words with which she blackmailed Kay. If he does not do as she wants, he will curse his hair, and it will fall out forever. This ominous image of his niece made his uncle laugh to tears, while Jean remained emotionless. He says this is all a stupid idea. The main character playfully began to threaten the child that he could be the first to try her witchcraft skills on himself. At this time, Chief K, peering out of the panoramic window at the city at night, was thinking about his own things. His memory flashed back to the moment with Jay, who sternly asks him to calculate the exchange rate correctly so as not to be shortchanged even by 10-1. He then remembers other moments with her. How she cried, how they spent time together after a day of farming, and how they first met. The man grinned, after which he noted out loud that Yoondu was a very interesting girl. Before leaving for good, Jay tells his uncle not to worry about her and to take care of his health, to which he agrees. They hug and make promises to each other to keep in touch more often. The uncle also advises his niece to be careful. Jin is told by the girl to stay strong, behave well, and obey his guardian. The boy tells her not to worry about it because he made a promise that he will be responsible until the day he dies. The girl hugs Jin and rejoices at how he has matured. She promises to see him soon, to which the boy sadly agrees. Jay waves goodbye to her relatives and promises to contact them as soon as she and Ludvig meet. After the niece left, the uncle, noticing the child's changed mood, asked him if everything was all right. He just turned away and said that everything was fine with him, although most likely something was bothering him. Once in Kay's interdimensional institution, Jay hears from him that her clothes are too unusual for another world and she might be attacked. Because of this, the boss says that he will try to move the girl as close to the castle as possible, and so that there are no people in her way. Yoonju agrees with his words and says that if she gets lost, she will just turn on the navigator. The boss says that when she meets with Ludvig, she will only be able to ask him 3 questions that he and she can understand. And on the way to his castle, she can only ask 1 question about his location. He warns that once they meet, they must quickly exchange questions and answers. Otherwise, it could lead to trouble. The girl remembers that she has only 3 questions and accordingly 3 answers, after which she tells the boss that she understood everything. However, Kay informs the main character about another important condition. Her soul must be absolutely pure. This is because people who harbor greed and envy become prisoners of their own greed and make others suffer. As a god, Kay says that his child, who was once pure in soul, once became a victim of this cruelty. And no matter how much this tormented the soul of God, he could not interfere in his fate personally. And at that moment, when he decided to save the child, he entrusted Ludvig to the main character. Chief K says that the girl saved the boy's soul thanks to sincere love. He also says that Jay told him the words he needed most, and in gratitude for this, he promises to do everything to help her. Finally, the boss thanks Yoonju for giving love to this child, to which she also responds with gratitude. Then Kay asks her for forgiveness for not telling her a lot of things and deceiving her, thereby causing many problems for the pupil. In response, Jay makes the assumption that there is probably still something that the boss hid from her and says that it is not too late for him to go with her. After exchanging pleasantries, the girl sits down on a luxurious throne, which is about to send her to another world. Kay asks her to close her eyes, which Jay does. She is looking forward to meeting Ludvig. Time is transported to the past. The wedding of Ludvig's parents takes place. The couple holds a wedding ceremony. Everyone present in the hall cheerfully applauds. The man is the first to make his oath to support and love each other as spouses. Then the bride is asked to take an oath, but she is in no hurry to answer. In fact, Ludvig's mother does not like everything that is happening. She psychopathically does not want to get married. The girl hates her fiancé so much that every time in her thoughts she asks him not to approach her, otherwise he will deal with him. Ludvig's mother often cried because of what her life had become. She didn't want to live like that. The reason for this depression was love, which was destroyed when she married the father of her child. But her depression took an even worse turn when the girl found out that she had become pregnant by an unloved man. Ludvig, who had just been born, delighted all the servants with his beauty, but his mother did not care at all about it. She got so angry that she was going to take him away from the servant and throw her own son on the floor. Fortunately, her father was nearby and did not allow the girl to violate his only heir. He returned the child to the servant. He told his wife that she was no longer needed and could leave. These words only added fuel to the fire of the mother, who was gradually going crazy. Due to the fact that Mr. Langell needed her only because of the heir, she took out all her anger on her son. While in exile because of his mother, Ludvig suddenly realized that he had been locked in his room for several months. He noticed a bird flying past in the window and briefly wondered what it would be like to be as free as she was, when suddenly a divine silhouette appears before his eyes, pitying him because of his suffering. God says that he came to help the boy because he is from the Langell family. However, the silhouette says that his strength is not enough for this, so he gives Ludvig a chance and promises to send him to someone who will truly love him. The young prince, peering into the divine essence, became very interested in his words about sincere love. Duke Langell, finding his heir unconscious on the floor, asks the doctor what the reason is. The doctor says it looks like a hereditary disease that runs in their family. The father asks his son to wake up because he cannot bear his wife's suicide and his death at the same time. He desperately says that from now on, God does not exist for him. Ludvig, choking with tears, asks God if anyone can really love him after everyone turns away from him. He says that he will find a person in whom he is confident and who will love the boy more than anything in the world and teach his soul to love. Finally, the deity orders Ludvig to never doubt whether he is worthy of love or not. Ludvig, who lived for 2 years on Earth, woke up in a large castle at the age of 18. He awakened when his divine power, which reduced his physical pain to a minimum, became unnecessary. But Ludvig is not grateful to God for this, because Jay is no longer next to him. The guy thinks that if he didn't continue to know the warmth of affection and love, then life without Jay wouldn't be so unbearable. But Ludvig is glad that at least he has memories with her. This is the only reason he continues to breathe. Walking along a long corridor, a man remembers the girl's words about how much she loves him, and with which he mentally reciprocates her feelings. But suddenly, a soul appears near the guy, who says that now he has become useless to anyone, even his own mother, and the whole world has turned away from him. Ludvig punches the wall hard and orders the soul to disappear away. The butler notices his strange behavior and asks the master if everything is okay with him. He says yes, and asks not to worry about him. However, the man guessed that the ghost had appeared to the prince again. He tells Ludvig that a letter from the emperor has arrived. In the letter, the emperor is worried that Ludvig has not yet gotten married and has not acquired heirs, so he proposes to arrange a matchmaking. However, the emperor does not insist, and before it is too late, he allows the prince to make his own choice and reminds him that due to the peculiarities of the Langell family, Ludvig needs to marry a girl of lower status. Ludvig crumples up the letter and says that the only thing that worries him is Gosnin, the defender of the empire. He says this is another pathetic scheme of the vile emperor, but due to the need to leave heirs, he will be forced to repeat the fate of his father. And in this case, the aristocrat who marries him will repeat the tragic fate of his mother. Ludvig had a headache from the problems that had piled on him. He covers his face with his hand and curses out loud. But at this moment, an ominous thought comes into his head that will help him get rid of his suffering. Just kill everyone. The prince is distracted from his thoughts by the butler, who informs him that a guest has arrived from Earth. Ludvig was interested in his words, but he says that since the gentleman is not feeling well, he will send the guest back. But the prince, ignoring the butler's words, went straight to the guest to see him in person. There was a man in front of him. He is excitedly greeted by Duke Langel and introduces himself to Antonio Hernando. But in response, Ludvig only ordered the arriving guest to raise his head. As soon as he did this, the prince was convinced that it was not Jay. Pointing the knife to Antonio's throat, the gentleman inquired about his strange outfit. The guest says that this is a unique costume from his native land. Hernando nervously explains that the feathers on his suit symbolize a bird that wants to fly free. The man compares himself to her and says that he is saddened by the fate of this world. So he arrived on a secret mission to help Ludvig with Baron Debbie Bryce. Hearing the last name, Duke Langel swung his sword furiously, taking Antonio's life. The prince angrily says that Debbie Bryce should have thought 3 times before sending a man to his estate. Ludvig orders his Black Knights to go to Debbie right now and erase his entire history into dust, leaving no one alive. After Debbie Bryce's house goes up in flames, the Duke is visited again by a ghost who tells him that he is a child of the devil and does not deserve love. At this moment, the butler Byrne enters the master's office and says that a girl from Earth named Jay has come to see him. He again described her as a young girl of short stature and wearing strange clothes. Hearing this name, Ludvig rushed out of the office and hurried to the guest hall. There he saw his Jane, who, as promised, did not leave him alone and came to him. After a long time of waiting and an endless amount of suffering, the couple is reunited again. After cuddling with Ludvig, Jay was surprised at how much her cute puppy had grown and said that she was about to cry. The man at this time cannot believe that Jay is now next to him and compares what is happening to a dream. He is so happy to see his pupil that he warmly hugs her again. Sitting down on a chair, the girl began a conversation about the fact that Ludvig had already reached adulthood. She is surprised at how quickly he has grown. Jay thought about one strange thing. Only 4 months had passed since she broke up with him. But suddenly she is struck by a certain guess and asks Ludvig to tell him his age. He replies that he is 27 this year. Yoon-ju is surprised by this, after which the man says that the last time he saw her was 10 years ago. After this, Ludvig notices the girl's downcast mood and thinks that he said or did something wrong. In fact, Jay was sad because her puppy had been lonely all these 10 years, and she couldn't come to him earlier. Feeling guilty, she apologizes to Ludvig for having to wait so long for her. But the prince says that this is not her fault, and he was able to survive loneliness only thanks to her and the memories that she gave him. The man repeats once again that Jay is not to blame, and now the only important thing is that from now on, they will always be together. The girl agrees with him. Ludvig is surprised that only 4 months have passed for the main character. She says she couldn't come earlier. Suddenly the man realizes that now he and his pupil are the same age. He wants to hear from Jay confirmation of his words, but she was embarrassed to answer due to the indecently short distance between them. Yoon-ju sits away from Ludvig with lightning speed, after which she is surprised by this coincidence and praises the beauty of the landscape that opens from where she is sitting. The man didn't quite understand her words about the landscape, but he was tormented by another question. How did the main character get here? As soon as the girl said that she came from the mountains, Ludvig began to worry, after which he asked how long she had to walk. Hearing that it took Jay 2 hours to do this, the prince was stunned, because in such a time she could get into trouble. The Duke urgently asks his friend not to go anywhere alone again, because it is very dangerous. She agrees with him. Ludvig then introduces Jay to his butler named Joseph, who will help her with everything from now on. The girl watches as the prince orders the butler to prepare the bedroom for her and prepare dinner for 2. The prince noticed Jay's observant gaze, to which she said that she was delighted with how grown up her child had become. The Duke blushes at her words and brushes it off as nothing special. Joseph, who saw the gentleman smile for the first time, is surprised at how much he likes the arriving dugout. At the same time, the butler began to think that in the future, such relations could plunge the entire empire into chaos. Walking through Ludvig's palace, Jay is amazed at how huge and luxurious it is. A couple enters one of the opulent bedrooms. The prince says that from now on, this is the main character's room. Looking at her mansions, the girl is surprised by the insanely high ceilings. Jay notices another bed behind the screen, to which Ludvig says that his room is connected to hers. The gentleman expresses his joy that he can now see his girlfriend every day. Yoonju agrees with him, actually feeling awkward at how close they are. Ludvig presents the girl with her closet, where she can store her things. He advises you to dress warmly because it is cold in his castle. The man shows Jay a pair of shoes and says they will look good on her. He also reminds that he can ask the butler for help, just shake the bell. The girl is touched by the prince, who looks like a cute puppy, while Ludvig is surprised that she calls him that, although he is no longer small. After this, the Duke invites his friend to change clothes, to which she agrees. While waiting for the main character in a new image, the man hears her say that she is dissatisfied with something. He asks what's the matter. Jay comes out to Ludvig, who is not satisfied with the dress, which turned out to be too big for her. Seeing the girl in such a clumsy manner, the prince laughed. She began to be indignant that her situation was not funny at all. She says that it is not her fault that in the world in which the prince lives, all people are solid giants. He promises to pick out a smaller outfit for her. Ludvig doesn't stop laughing because when Jay is around, he can do it non-stop. He wishes this moment to last forever. Remembering the presence of the internet, the girl reminds the man about Netflix, where they watched programs with Manpanji. Yoonju says they didn't get to see everything because Kay interrupted his monthly payment. But now they can watch as much as they want. The next moment, Jay remembers what she will write to her uncle as soon as she meets Ludvig. But an idea comes to her. She suggests that the gentleman send a text message to his uncle himself. He accepts her offer. With the help of a friend who suggested how to spell this or that word, Ludvig was able to type the text and send a message. Jay praised her puppy, after which they quickly received a response. In the message, the uncle says that he is glad to know that everything is fine with them. He asks the prince to take care of his niece and continue to keep in touch with him. Seeing a photograph of his uncle, Ludvig is surprised because it is the first time he has seen him smile. The girl agrees that it is amazing. Things that had lost their meaning began to be filled with taste again, and things that had no smell now smell like roses. And all thanks to the fact that Jay is now next to Ludvig. Plopping down on the bed, the girl rejoices at how well she and the Duke ate. Suddenly, the main character remembers that she brought something to drink with her and reaches for her bag. The prince asks what she brought, to which the girl, trying to get the thing out of the bag, says that it turned out to be heavier than she thought. From a small travel bag, Jay takes out a large, massive box, which greatly surprises the man. While placing many bottles of apple juice, Yoonju says that she heard that apples don't grow in this world, so she brought this with her. Ludvig asks her a question about how she was able to prepare so many bottles, to which she says that her uncle and Jin helped her. Jay tells how 3 months ago, Jin caused a scandal because he did not want to squeeze juice out of apples. In response, the girl says that he himself volunteered to help her instead of buying a juicer. Jin complains that he didn't know there would be so many apples and refuses to work, saying that there is absolutely no point in doing so. In a moment, the darkened Jay is angry that the boy dared to kick the gift for Ludvig. He tried to justify himself that it was just an accident, but in the end he could not escape the punishment of writhing his cheeks. After this, Jin, without ceasing to grumble, did the work together with the girl. Ludvig laughed with Gina and expressed his gratitude for such a souvenir. Jay said she would pass his words on to Jin. Watching his girlfriend, the Duke has a pleasant feeling that he has returned to those happy times when he lived with Yoonju. The man wants Jay to always remain by his side, like now. After drinking apple juice, the butler approaches the gentleman and informs him that it is time to hold a meeting. He agrees. But before that, Ludvig urgently asks Jay not to go anywhere while he is away. She, lighting up her face with a bright smile, says that she will easily fulfill his request. Ludvig and the butler began to leave the room, while the girl thought about why the prince was so afraid for her. She assumes that this has to do with where he left so quickly. The Duke tells the people gathered around the table that this morning a guest from Earth knocked on the door of their duchy. Ludvig says that she has no status, but she is the most noble of all in the empire, so she asks that she be treated with the same respect as him. But one man from those present decided to express his feelings that if the emperor found out about this, then trouble would not be avoided. Ludvig threatens the man that he will consider his words to be insubordination, after which he does not dare to say another word. Butler Joseph, who was observing the meeting, understands that the first troubles have already begun. At this time, the emperor, peering into the snowstorm from his window, cannot understand what Ludvig was thinking about when he committed such actions. While in his room, Duke Langell replays pleasant moments with his friend, how she tried on a dress, had lunch with him, and drank juice. These memories with joyful Jane make him smile for no reason. Ludvig wanted to visit her, so he was about to open the door to her bedroom. But suddenly he was overcome with doubts about whether he could enter her or not. The man remembers how, when he was little, he always slept next to Jay, which is now hardly possible. The prince decides to put such thoughts out of his head, since he will only come into her room to say hello. Ludvig opened the door and asked if he could come inside, but there was no answer. As it turns out, Jay is sleeping. She lay sweetly on the bed, like a sleeping beauty. The man, fascinated by her beauty, approached and bent down to her face. He wanted to say some important words, but did not have time. At that moment, the girl woke up and calmly asked Ludvig what he was doing. The prince is frightened by such suddenness. He anxiously apologizes to his friend and says that she misunderstood everything. Jay says he has nothing to apologize for and wonders what he wanted to tell her. But Ludvig says that's not the point and storms out of the room, wishing Yoon-ju good night. Out of shame, the man buried his face in the pillow, not understanding why the hell he even came into her room. The prince aloud tells himself to calm down, when suddenly Jay appears next to him and asks why he needs to calm down. The man gets scared and falls out of bed, nervously asking the girl why she is not sleeping. She says that he is acting strange. Yoon-ju is worried about his behavior and wonders if he is hiding something from her. Unexpectedly, the girl invites him to sleep together, holding hands to calm his excitement. Calling Ludvig his sweet puppy, Jay snuggles into bed with him and wishes him sweet dreams. The man falls asleep with her. He has a strange feeling, the essence of which he cannot understand. In his thoughts, he also wishes the girl good night. The raging downpour outside the window did not distract the young long-haired man from the thoughts he was pondering while looking at his sword. He recalls a recent meeting of Ludvig, who said that from now on the guest from the earth has the same power as him. The man believes that the main character must be very amazing for Duke Langell to say such words about her. The butler Joseph enters the room and asks if he is taken over. Longhair answers yes. The butler then informs the man that the Duke has given him orders to accompany the guest. He didn't understand the butler's words the first time, so he asked to repeat it. Joseph explains that he is now the one responsible for the safety of the guest from Earth, Mrs. J. Longhair is surprised by this news because he has always killed and tortured people, not accompanied. Finally, the butler says that the Duke trusts him, so he appointed him to this task. Payment for such work will be 20,000. He is surprised at the large amount of salary that the Duke offers for the protection of his guest. Longhair sighs at the fact that he will have to accompany the main character, despite the fact that he is awkward around women. Meanwhile, Ludvig wakes up abruptly because he thinks he overslept. But next to him, he notices Jay sleeping, after which he realizes that for the first time he was able to fall asleep so easily. Ever since he broke up with her, he had nightmares every night. But now, with her return, even the ghost of his mother, who tormented him during the day, no longer appeared. Following the man, the girl wakes up. She asks Ludvig if everything is fine with him. He says everything is fine. The couple sweetly exchanges good morning wishes. However, remembering what time it is, Ludvig gets out of bed in a hurry. The girl stops him and says that he forgot to take his sword with him. The prince takes it and thanks Jay. Then the man apologizes to his girlfriend for the fact that they will not be able to have breakfast together and invites them to have dinner together. Jay happily agrees to his proposal and says that he has nothing to worry about. Ludvig thanks the main character for her understanding and leaves with the butler to run errands. Looking after the departing Duke, Jay feels ashamed that she and he look too much like newlyweds. She shakes her head from these thoughts. A maid approaches the girl, whose appearance she was very frightened. The servant says that Yoon-ju gets along well with the master, like newlyweds. Jay asks, since when the girl has been standing next to her, to which she is surprised by the words that Ludvig regrets that he will not be able to have breakfast with his guest. Judging by this, the girl understands that the servant stood here for a long time. The servant tells her that the master asked her to inspect the castle today. For this purpose, she prepared warm clothes for the guest. Looking at the coat, Jay says it looks very warm. The maid asks her to give a sign when she is ready. Seeing the guest from Earth in a new luxurious image, the servant bombarded her with compliments and words that she looked like the Duke's bride. Suddenly, two men approach Jay, introduce themselves as Roberto and Mikhail, and say that they will accompany her today. The girl is surprised at their words and says that she herself is able to take a walk. The men say that this is an order from the Duke, which makes the main character even more surprised. All this time, a long-haired man was secretly watching them. Time returns to the past, where Jay walks along the castle corridor at night, looking for a bathroom. But suddenly she freezes, noticing a strange, scary human shadow on the floor. The girl realizes that it is not she who is casting this shadow, which frightens her greatly. But she decides to pull herself together. Plucking up his courage, Jay quickly turns around to see the owner of the shadow. But her expectations were cut short when there was no one behind her. Yoon-ju decides that she was just imagining it all. As if nothing had happened, the girl continues her way to the bathroom. Suddenly, in the mirror that hangs in the corridor, a certain humanoid image appears, which clearly does not have the best intentions. Jay recounted this whole situation with the shadow to Duchess Susan over a cup of tea. The Duchess believes that all these oddities occur due to the old age of the palace, because it was built thousands of years ago. She then suggests that it might be a ghost because she has heard rumors about it. Jay was alarmed by such words, and she asks the woman to tell her more about it. Susan talks about a rumor that an evil spirit lives in the castle, which appears to people in the form of a shadow. He enters a person's shadow, inhabits the body through it, and uses it as his own shell, after which he disappears. After using one body, he escapes and wanders again to find another host. The Duchess warns that if you encounter a ghost at night, you absolutely must not look him in the eye. Mrs. Susan J. remembered this whole story, looking at Roberto and Mikhail, who had volunteered to accompany her. After this, the girl asks the men if there are other escorts in the castle besides them. Mikhail replies that they are the best of the knights, and no one can compare with them. He suggests that the main character is not comfortable with them, but says that they know every corner of the castle. Also, the knight speaks that everyone here knows them, which is why they were ordered to accompany the guest from the ground. Jay reluctantly agrees with him. Roberto decided to defuse the situation and calm his friend's seriousness. He asks the lady for forgiveness for not being merciful to Mikhail. However, Roberto cheerfully states that if Jay is in danger, she can always call them for help. Yoon-ju thanks the man for his support, but says she can overcome everything on her own. He is touched by her courage. After some time, Jay and her guards came to the castle's greenhouse. She is surprised by her beauty. She also praises the scent that lingers in the air, thanks to the hundreds of flowers that grow there. Suddenly, Roberto asks the girl to pay attention to him. He wonders if the flower behind his ear suits him. The main character says that he looks just great, while Mikhail thinks that his friend is wretched. Then Roberto puts a flower in the girl's hair. She thanks him for such mercy. However, all this time, some stranger was watching the men and Jay. An indefinite amount of time passes. The main character, putting a bandage on her head, decides that she herself will defeat the shadow ghost. With Ludvig working so hard, Jay thinks his castle needs to be made safer. The girl is filled with fighting spirit, and calling herself a ghost hunter, heroically promises to protect the Duke and his palace. From her research, she learned that shadow ghosts prefer dark places. Based on this, the girl hides behind the curtain, fully confident that the salt she took with her will scare away the ghost. Suddenly, Jay immediately notices the same shadow that she had already seen recently. Realizing that the shadow ghost has already come to her, the girl immediately decides to carry out her plan to capture him. She throws a bowl of salt directly into the source of the shadow, driving the ghost away and calling him a vile creature. But instead of evil spirits, Mr. Gray appeared in front of Jay, whom the Duke instructed to protect her. He, sprinkled with salt, asks the girl what she is doing here. The main character could not find words from such an unexpected turn of events. At this moment, Ludvig bursts into the room with Mikhail and Roberto, alarmed by the noise. But instead of something terrible, they see Mr. Gray and Jay, who shamefully lowered her head in front of him. When the Duke asks what happened, Gray assumes that the lady confused him with a ghost. Ludvig asks if something terrible happened to them, to which he answers in the negative. "Sir, I'm glad to hear that everything is fine." The prince then notices Jay, with a strange expression on her face, covering her face with his cloak out of shame. He is surprised by her behavior. The girl makes an excuse that she did not know that she had been hunting a person all this time. Gray, watching the Duke, who then promises to explain everything to his friend, considers his behavior a little nervous. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a girl with snow-white hair appears and attacks the knight with a sword. He managed to protect himself from the blow. Mr. Gray realizes that the power emanating from the girl is familiar to him, after which he recognizes Cassandra in the stranger. Putting the sword aside, Cassandra is surprised that she always believed that only northern knights lived in the castle. However, she didn't expect to see a girl here who was shaking because of a ghost. Now, she understood why they were like a thorn in the Emperor's side. Jay grumbles that she wasn't afraid of anyone, while Cassandra says that she came to pick up a stranger named Jay on the orders of the Emperor. Ludvig doesn't like this news. He clarifies who is going to pick up her friend. Meanwhile, the main character, who has not yet recovered from the surprise of the ghost, does not understand what is happening at all. Time moves back a few days. The Emperor, among his friends, is discussing some topics. One blue-eyed girl asks if anyone has heard the rumors that everyone is already talking about. The red-haired lady asks her if she means the guest of the Duke of Langjel, who came from Earth. The white-haired man says that he heard that this foreigner is Ludvig's fiancée. Hearing such gossip, the Emperor asks his friends to tell him more about the main character. One of the girls says that recently the Emperor has been busy with state affairs, so he probably hasn't heard of her yet. The girl explains that they are now discussing a foreign girl who recently visited the Duke's castle in the north, and who, according to rumors, is Ludvig's future wife. The Emperor thinks that such an idea of the Duke of Langjel is too stupid, because he has already recommended the princess to him for marriage. Realizing that his plan may fail, His Majesty decides to get rid of the foreigner and set Ludvig up with the princess. While thinking about how this could be done, he suddenly remembered his encounter with rank 1 Princess Ceres from the Eastern Juno region. The Emperor joyfully greeted the princess and wanted to ask how she was doing. But Ceres interrupts him and alarmedly says that she cannot marry Duke Langjel because she does not have the rights to do so. But the man reassures the princess, saying that if her worries are due to rumors about the groom, then she has no need to worry. The Emperor says that everything will be fine, as he promised, because marriage is also needed for Ludvig's younger brother. Ceres, who has realized that everything that is happening is not because of rumors, says that she, even being unmarried, can live well alone. Suddenly, the princess hears words that are completely shocking to her. The Emperor believes that she cannot live alone. He reminds her that she is going to restore the eastern province. But if she lives alone, everyone will consider her an exiled princess. Rumors of this would reach her family members with shame. The depressed girl has no choice but to agree with the Emperor. He advises her to think carefully about his words. His Majesty once again sets himself the goal of getting rid of the main character while his plan cannot be realized. The Emperor comes out of his memories and leaves his friends, saying that he has urgent matters to attend to. He meets Cassandra on his way, who flirtatiously hugs him and asks if he missed her. The man asks to take your dirty hands off him. The girl complains about how touchy he is. His Majesty orders Cassandra to bring to him a stranger from Earth who came to Ludvig. She became interested in his words. However, the Emperor says that the guest from Earth must come without injury, otherwise his plans will be in jeopardy. Reminding that they are Langjel's honorable enemies, the girl asks permission to at least scratch Ludvig's friend. The Emperor categorically forbids her to do this and says that she just needs to bring her to him. Cassandra reluctantly agrees. Time returns to the moment when Cassandra broke into the Duke's castle. She believes that they cannot cope with her, and no matter what the Emperor has in mind, they will have fun. The impending silence between the Langjel brothers and the guest from Earth caused Cassandra boredom, which made her want to leave as quickly as possible. But the girl deftly grabs Jay and says that she will take this girl with her before leaving. The main character, slapping Cassandra in the face, says that she will not go anywhere, and that if the Emperor has business with her, then let him come himself. Suddenly, from the small walkie-talkie in the kidnapper's ear, complaints were heard about the noise they were making there. Ludvig, taking advantage of the fact that the girl was distracted, threw the sword in her direction. Menacingly not taking his eyes off the offender, the Duke promises to kill her if he moves even once. Cassandra complains that Ludvig has no manners because he left a big scratch on her beautiful face. Jay also decided not to miss the chance and hit the kidnapper in the chin with her shoulder. Seizing the moment, Ludvig attacks Cassandra with a huge spear. Jay breaks free from her arms. The girl did not expect such an attack from Duke Langjel. She doubts that the man is even sane. Mr. Grey, who is protecting Jay, orders her not to move because the lightning attribute magic will appear. The kidnapper decides to use her lightning magic to get what she wants. Ludvig believes that she lives up to her name, Cassandra. Ludvig receives a blow to the face, which disorients him for a few seconds. Mr. Grey also receives a strong blow. Unfortunately, he lets Jay out of his hands. Cassandra manages to take Jay away from them. Before leaving, she says that she almost died from the noise the men made. Duke Langjel, watching his beloved friend being kidnapped, desperately screams her name, but severe wounds do not allow him to follow Cassandra. The man, gritting his teeth, promises that he will not leave the Emperor alone for a second.